Mother, and Eddie gets the power of corn in those whopping big Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Gas, and David Bloom joins me today. Why do we need to even investigate using alcohol as a fuel for vehicles?
Well, there's multiple reasons. First of all, when it comes to air pollution, alcohol is 98% pollution-free compared to gasoline. And when it comes to climate change, alcohol, because it's made from plants, takes carbon dioxide out of the air instead of adding carbon dioxide to our atmosphere. We're actually okay in terms of alcohol being controlled because any farmer can produce the fuel, sell it to a neighborhood station that people set up themselves, like we're currently doing in Santa Cruz, and cut the oil companies completely out of the system.
People in the olden days, when there weren't gas stations every 50 miles, would go out in the country and there would actually be farmers that would be selling fuel, is that right?
Virtually every farm produced alcohol. Not only was it important for things like engines, but until we had electricity over the whole country, most people lit their homes using alcohol and turpentine to have light after dark. And so alcohol was a very common material on every farm in the United States. We used to generate electricity. Brazil imports no oil whatsoever, and they are the 5th biggest country in the world, so this is not some small example. And the way they did that was to replace most of their transportation fuel with alcohol that they make from sugarcane on less than 2% of their agricultural land. So we can actually follow Brazil's example and produce our fuel on a small fraction of our acreage and make ourselves energy independent. The car you currently have started off as an alcohol vehicle and now they run it on gasoline. The first cars all ran on alcohol and gasoline came along later. Converting your current car back to alcohol will cost less than $300 and can be set up to, with the flip of a switch, go between the two fuels, as is done in Brazil today. Well, there's an awful lot of misinformation out there where people think there's something wrong with the fuel, etc. And I think as the truth becomes clearer and clearer, as we see examples like Brazil or Sweden that just instituted a national alcohol program, or places like India that are going there in a big way, we're going to start to see that we're falling behind instead of leading in alternative energy, and I think we need to get there. Now, what's going to change, and because gasoline has gotten expensive, is now small-scale production can go into effect where average people can go into this kind of business and make a good profit, where in the past you had to have a giant plant to make money. Now even producing 50 or 100,000 gallons a year, something you could do in something the size of your backyard, would actually allow you to fuel 20 or 30 of your neighbors and make a middle-class living. And really what it takes is people to decide that they no longer want to give their money to companies that don't necessarily have the consumer's best interest in mind, and to support a fuel that doesn't require war to go get it from some other country. We can go ahead and do this right now, and in the Midwest, we already have 1,200 stations selling alcohol.
Buy wherever, whenever, and whatever we want. That's the American way. But there's mounting proof that our love affair with the car threatens our national security and the health of our planet. Common sense would dictate that we demand alternatives and consider new possibilities like cars that run not just on gasoline, but on water. Tonight in Project Energy, David Schechter says we have the technology, we just need the help to use less oil. Now, what we need is a plan.
What our technology does is reduce the consumption of gasoline
with water. Steve's process modifies tap water into a powerful fuel, which he says can improve fuel efficiency and reduce exhaust.
It's environmentally the right choice.
It might be a long shot, but something's got to be done. The world consumes an Olympic-sized swimming pool full of oil every 15 seconds. That's nearly 250 times in an hour. And most of it is used for transportation.
America represents 4% of the world's population, but we use about a quarter of the world's oil, much of it for driving people and products where they need to go. In this country, transportation accounts for almost 70% of all the oil we use.
You win the energy war by addressing transportation.
Matt Simmons leads the world's largest energy investment bank based in Houston.
It's the single most important issue facing the world over the next 50 years.
He says we can improve our gas mileage by using the technology we have today.
We know how to make vehicles now that get 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 miles to the gallon. They don't need to be small. They don't need to be unsafe. In fact, they can probably be more comfortable and have more amenities than the ones we're driving right now.
So if it's not an issue of technology, then why don't we do it? In the 70s, President Jimmy Carter didn't have hybrid cars or alternative fuels, but he still drove average fuel efficiency from 12 miles per gallon to 28.5 miles per gallon.
Since I left office, as you know, the restraints have been dropped. So now the average automobile efficiency, it's dropped down about like it was when I became president almost 25 years ago.
It's powered by the heavy-duty 6-liter.
It's dropped in part because of the SUV, a vehicle America fell in love with when gas was cheaper. But heavier vehicles like SUVs are exempt from tougher fuel efficiency standards, and there are millions of them on the road. One interesting policy plan was introduced this session at the state capitol. It encourages Ford to convert its troubled St. Paul plant to build hybrid cars that run on ethanol from corn and can be charged up with electricity when you get home. Fuel efficiency could be well over 100 miles per gallon, all with available technology. Ford is not yet convinced.
It's inevitable that we will someday have a motor fleet that gets 40 miles to the gallon. And if it's inevitable, we ought to be doing it sooner rather than later.
Steve Myers says eventually his gas-saving invention could be retrofitted onto almost any kind of vehicle.
We have the science, we have the knowledge. All we need to do is put it together and use it.
And if we already have what we need to get started now, he says, just imagine what's next.
Automobiles and trucks are, of course, the biggest gas guzzlers, but I think this clip from the Science Museum of Minnesota will help open your eyes as to how air travel contributes to this problem as well. It shows 1 day of air travel in the United States. Each line represents a single flight, and as the screen fills up, you start to get the idea. Just as we drive more than the rest of the world on, we also fly more. It looks like a lot of fuel. 19.5 billion gallons of fuel every year. 19.5 billion gallons of fuel every year. Every year.
Thing, you know, everyone seems to be feeling very down about the economy right now. I don't know, are things really so bad? For instance, I know of one company that just made more money in a quarter than any other company ever, and that's a scrappy little group of oil pumpers named ExxonMobil. They announced today they made an $11.6 billion profit in just 3 months. That's an $11.6 billion profit in just 3 months. That's more than Batman and Oprah combined. That is a lot of money, but as much credit as they deserve for it, they didn't do it alone. Today they started running this new advertisement to thank all the people who helped them achieve this historically obscene amount of money.
We just set a new record.
I just set a new record.
I just set a new record.
I just set a new record.
ExxonMobil didn't just set a new record for quarterly profits. You did. Thanks, suckers.
Sorry about that. We just had a little bit of technical difficulty. I'm not really sure what happened there. Just talking about...
They really love you. And what you've done is a wonderful thing, and I love you, Richard. I love you too, Sam. Thank you. Thank you.
What's your advice to the average American who is hurting now, facing the prospect of $4 a gallon gasoline? A lot of people facing...
Wait a minute, what did you just say? You're predicting $4 a gallon gasoline?
A number of analysts are predicting $4 a gallon gasoline this spring when they reformulate.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that.
You hadn't heard that gas might be $4 a gallon? What have you been doing?
Traffic.